All right, we're back with the SilmFilm script discussion, season 3, episode 8, part 2. So we have kind of worked out what's going on with our frame, maybe a little bit, and kind of gotten through where our teaser needs to wind up. But we're going to get back into that. We'll kind of discuss that again towards the tail end as we figure out how we're going to end that.
Meanwhile, I think I have figured out what the difference is between Hamilcar's viewpoint and Estel's viewpoint needs to be.
Which is?
Based on what David was putting out about normal wolves would be, tracking their prey and doing things that wolves do out in the wild. These are, evil spirit werewolves or something.
Supernatural wolves.
Exactly. Therefore, if Hamilcar is treating it as we're tracking an animal and thinking through what animals would do in the wild and how they would behave, that's one thing. If Estel figures out that what they're tracking is a monster that behaves slightly differently than that, they'd have a pretty serious difference of opinion on what the goal of the creature they're hunting is, and therefore they probably would have a difference of opinion of what to do. And Estel might be upset or worried that Hamilcar is ignoring things that could endanger somebody, because if these wolves find a settlement, they're going to attack it. Whereas if normal wolves find a settlement, they're going to avoid it. They're really hungry.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is that
a lot of what you think Estel should be correct and Hamilcar should be mistaken. That
was the idea, right? Or was it supposed to be the other way around? Was Estel supposed to be right or wrong?
I like the idea of Hamilcar being more experienced, but less educated.
Okay.
So I don't know how they actually work out in terms of what they want to do. I think I like the idea that both of them have very good points, and that if they both listened to each other, they would have come up with.
Yeah, that would be a better thing, because it's. While there might be some wargs out here, that doesn't mean there aren't normal wolves out here as well.
Yes.
And the point is that Estel certainly does not personally know what he's up against, because he hasn't seen them yet. All they've heard are stories that are third hand at this point.
Yeah.
So they have no way of knowing what they're up against other than a bad winter. That part is real.
Also, I'd like it to not be 100% clear, even by the end of the season, whether these were intelligent beings or not that they were dealing with.
Yeah, they're acting unusually for wolves at the very least.
Yes.
But whether or not it's wolves or wargs.
Right. I mean, when we see them, we're kind of going to be seeing them from Estel's point of view, in which they're going to look huge
and terrifying.
Right.
Well,
so I'm okay with.
He's not 10.
What's that?
He's 16, so he's almost.
I know. But what I'm saying is that when we see the wolves, I think that they should appear to the audience to be larger than regular wolves. But it's an open question whether or not that's kind of been clouded by his perception or not. I mean, maybe not all the audience is going to look that deeply into it, but that's kind of what I'm suggesting, is that it's not necessary. So, if something is scary to you, it looks way scarier than if somebody who is not scared of that thing sees it. For example, if two people, one who's afraid of heights and one who's not, are standing on the edge of my the overhang over my front porch, one's going to feel like that's really, really high, and the other's not going to see it as a big deal, because you could technically jump off of that and land on your feet and you'd probably be okay. But
no, I hear that, is that fear does change perspective. That's your perception is based on more than just the actual visual input. So that's fine. I think the viewer is going to think that there's something evil about the wolves, and we don't really want to convey the idea that actual wolves are evil creatures that all must die. That's kind of not going to be the plot line of our story.
Well,
So
I think that
there has to be an implication that there's evil will and intent behind both this winter snowstorm stuff
yes.
and the wolves.
Yes.
I'm suggesting that it's not clear what level of supernatural intervention was taking place here. Is kind of what I'm going for.
And I do want to avoid the impression that all wolves are evil because it's done so often in European writing and fantasy, and because Tolkien unfortunately gave that impression. Be clear, I want the Dunedain to be clear when they know that they're evil dwarves to always not wolves, and to like not actually have a vendetta, like kill all wolves just in case they're wargs, but like
Well, they are currently operating on the Dunedain are currently operating under the impression that the wolves, that there is something supernaturally weird going on, and that the wolves are a viable threat right now.
I lost you. I can't hear you.
What I'm saying is that the Dunedain at this point are operating under the idea that the wolves are definitely a viable
threat
danger.
and a danger to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that there is some sort of supernatural involvement. They're not 100% certain beyond some rumors what level that supernatural involvement is, but they know that they wouldn't have like come out in force to deal with this if it was just, you know, like a wolf extermination hunt or something like that.
Yeah.
And we can make that clear in the last episode when they had a discussion about, or the episode before when they have a discussion about the wolf problem. So we can definitely make that distinction.
Nick, you're breaking up a lot in my ears.
Am I breaking up for anybody else?
No, I can hear you just fine right now.
Okay. Let me let me just check the broadcast real quick to see.
Now, on the other hand, she's breaking up a little bit, so it might be
okay. But definitely, my connection is terrible. Not surprising.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm coming through on the broadcast, so. Okay.
Yeah. So as David points out, we should make sure there's a differentiation between wargs, wolves that attack people for various natural reasons or unnatural reasons, and then just regular wolves who exist in the world but aren't necessarily like this evil supernatural threat.
Like people can bring up the question of in that meeting that we had a couple of episodes ago, they can bring up the question of what's the big deal? There's always been wolves. Wolves are not a big deal, and somebody can
and that can be part of Estel and Hamilcar revisiting it themselves with a little bit more ignorance and a little bit less nuance, but just disagreeing rather than talking about the different possibilities. To be like, well, you have to do it this way because of course this is what we're up against.
Have to be careful if normal wolves come to a village because there are stories in Europe about, before the wolves were all wiped out, about wolves actually like carrying off children. So it did happen.
Yeah, of course.
But there's like children who were like herding sheep in the hills like 2 miles from home or something.
Yeah.
So,
well, and like many things, there's a fear of something that can happen and can be real. And it's an issue you have to be aware of and deal with in those societies. It does not necessarily mean that the answer or the solution is total extermination.
Right.
Because,
well, of course, duh.
Yeah.
Well, I know you know that, but I was thinking of for instance, there's plenty of communities where there's hyenas that live nearby. And hyenas can kill a child too, no problem. People don't like keep their kids inside all the time or worry about that. They just tell their kids how to throw stones at hyenas if they see any. It's it's something you kind of just deal with. And they're like, that's dangerous. A kid could totally get eaten by a hyena sometime. That would suck. There's no
it becomes
as a response to that.
It becomes an occupational hazard.
I think the Dunedain do not consider their mission in the world to subdue nature, and don't feel like they need to exterminate entire species of animals.
Yes, so we would want to contrast their viewpoint with the Western U.S. ranchers that Dave brought up about opposing the reintroduction of wolves because, oh no, they're going to eat our livestock and we don't want that.
Yeah.
Which is it's a viewpoint and a decently valid viewpoint, but again, extermination's maybe not the correct approach for this problem. And I think the Dunedain should be a little bit more sensitive to that than your average farmer, because farmers are always concerned about protecting their livestock. I mean, that's their livelihood. You have to be concerned about that. And in the case of these people, it's their food source. So they care about that too, but not.
Are the who clear cut everything.
Yeah.
They're not like nature lovers.
No, they're not. They're not nature lovers.
Yeah, the Numenorians are not. They're not nature lovers.
No. After a certain point, certainly not. All right, let's get into.
Okay, I'll let you get to the real story.
Yeah. So, who do we see as our protagonist of the Feanorian plot? Because there is a temptation to make it Amrod, but we have to be certain if we did that, then the burning cannot happen until Act 4 is like pretty much done.
The last 4 minutes of the episode would be his death would have to be in that time.
Right.
Frame.
Well, the last 10 minutes certainly.
We have to have Kieran attracted by the fire and coming north, so it can't be the last couple scenes.
Well, that's okay. That's kind of okay because we can
tell Fëanor to his face that he's crazy.
Yeah, the problem is we want more aftermath from the burning and the death than just to have it happen and then do the wrap up of the episode real quick.
Right.
So I think the death needs to happen a little earlier, and therefore it does not make sense to do it from his point of view. Also, from his point of view means we should see the ships on fire from his point of view, which nobody had opted to show someone trapped in a fire.
We have to do something about that because that logistical issue has still not been solved to my satisfaction.
I know. There's some issues with it.
We don't. I don't.
My point is.
There's going to be many times we have to show on-screen people dying gruesome deaths or even being tortured.
Yeah.
We don't need to show him burning alive on screen. So
I agree with that.
But if he were the protagonist of the episode, we would need to show it because that's his death. Right. You can't make him the protagonist and then not show his death. That doesn't work. So
he can't be the protagonist. He's crazy, and we don't want his point of view to be central anymore.
Right. So that kind of leaves Maedhros as the obvious one because he's the one who's going to make a choice against the ship burning, and therefore there's a decision making on his end.
Going to be the correct choice.
The other choice would be Amros, who is the twin of the guy who's going to die, because he also makes some choices in this episode prior to all of that.
But he's not. None of his choices.
I know.
Matter.
But he tries to talk his brother out of going back. Probably.
Yes.
He either tries to ask questions about the ship burning, comes up after the fact. Like, we haven't really figured out his role in the burning itself yet because we don't know where he is at that time. But he may take part in it even, possibly, or at least run around trying to figure out what's going on.
I think he should.
And then afterwards reveal what happened.
I think he should be like, wait, guys, hold on. Like at first he's like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm going along with this. And then before he actually physically does anything to participate, he's like, wait a minute, I'm not sure Amrod is not on board. And he's like, wait, guys, let me go find him.
I think that's a thing that can, absolutely.
You can have guys and they don't wait. And then he like goes over to Maedhros, who's like not participating, and he's like, help me find Amrod. And Maedhros is like, why? Why are you so upset, Celine? I mean, this sucks, but why are you running around in a panic?
Right. So the question was, we don't know how much Amros knows about what's happening, and we don't know how many of the sons actively participate in the burning because of the different versions of the story. So the only details we need to preserve are that Maedhros is the only one who publicly speaks out and separates himself from it while it's happening. So Amros could either be a passive observer who doesn't try to stop it but doesn't join in. He could take part. He could be spending the whole time running around doing something else and therefore not be part of it. Like, there's things we can do with him, but it does make it difficult to make him a protagonist if he's not personally involved in the choice of whether or not to burn the ships in any real way. If he's just running around in the background. But Dave does have a point, yeah.
Dave makes the point that a protagonist constantly fighting against fate and failing to make any significant changes can be dramatically interesting, and I absolutely agree. And we're God knows we're gonna have plenty of that. I do think though that we would need to make sure that he had a storyline from the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
Which is kind of more of the issues. If this episode is starting before they've actually left, there's not a lot of story for him there.
Right, because we're starting with Fingon and Mithros talking or kind of not talking and
yeah, so Fingon and Mithros is how we're supposed to start the episode. So, we kind of were told that as the scene that they wanted to have. And it's so that Fingon can then go back to shore with the Feanor's crazy and we did not do anything this guy says message for his dad to start that on-shore conversation. So we wanted Fingon to break off and do that, and the only Feanorian who would be speaking with Fingon that would make any sense would be Mithros. So Mithros and Fingon having a final conversation on the ship right before the betrayal
makes him the obvious choice for protagonist. So I wanted to say something about the brothers. So there's two stories, and there's the one where everyone's asleep.
Yeah, so I only heard about half of what you said, but I assume you're bringing up the difference between the Shibboleth of Feanor and the published Silmarillion for this scene of the ship burning. Is that correct?
Be away, so making the decision, and everyone should participate except the twins and Mithros.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the published Silmarillion, we obviously get the shortened version of the story, which essentially is Mithros alone stood aside, heavily implying that all the other sons were involved in the ship burning. In the Shibboleth of Feanor version, we get Feanor suddenly deciding to burn the ships, specifically taking Curufin and some of his brothers, not specified how many of them, but only Curufin is named. And then the ships get burned. Everyone falls asleep because this happened at night or whatever. And when they wake up the next morning and they do roll call, Amrod's missing. And it's like, oh, hey, where's Amrod? So we probably aren't going to do that version of the story with the idea of sleeping at night and roll call in the morning, just because that doesn't work too well. But as far as which brothers are involved in the ship burning, Tolkien obviously was willing to make it a little bit less all six of them as one unit, plus Mithros separately at that point.
The middle. I mean, the way I see it is like the story shows that if all of them except Mithros would have been willing, if you'd asked them, except Amros doesn't realize maybe his brother's there, he doesn't want to participate.
Yeah. So
I think they're all willing if they're awake, and I think they should be.
Yeah. So the question is how chaotic that whole scene will be. But for Amros, if we did want to make this whole story from his point of view, we would need something the whole way through of what his goal is in this episode. Even if he fails in it, we need to know what it is he's working towards and trying to accomplish. So if we started at the very beginning, right when the Feanorians decided to launch their ships, we would have to have his reaction point of what he was trying to do there. And we kind of had set it up that Feanor has a signal to send to all the ships to make them all go out to sea at the same time without talking to the land. Like, that's how he's stealing the fleet, is he gets them all going out at the same time. And there's no communication with the shore. So Amros would be involved in that. Either he's a captain of a ship or something, and then he would be participating in that maneuver. which would give us the opportunity to have him like that, dislike that, be upset about it, not figure out what's going on until after it happens. You know, whatever his take, that would be what he's doing at that time.
I would
The
just
question is if that's more interesting than Mithros, which
Let's go back because
so
is left for him, and Mithros is really not helpful and doesn't want to help look for him. Or if like
I think what you're saying, I'm sorry, we're only hearing maybe half of what you're saying, but I'm thinking you're talking about the ship burning activity and what Amros is doing during it, and it sounds like he's asking Mithros for help, and Mithros is not interested in helping him. So Amros is kind of alone in this, oh no, where is my twin brother dilemma? Like no one is listening to him. Is that what's going on?
I was saying that I was saying Amros is pissed off after the ship burning. If
right.
you pissed off at Mithros who wasn't involved, you could have that happen. That scenario.
I see.
Or you could have that's the only brother he's still willing to talk to the other.
Yeah.
So
it is true that we're eventually going to have Amros in the south of Beleriand separate from everybody. So if we want to be mad at everybody, that is a potential outcome of this whole thing, is that Amros never gets along with any of his family ever again after this episode. We could go that direction if we want to.
He avoids them when he's I mean, that's basically
as far as he can. He's still one of them. He can't get away from them.
I mean, I was thinking basically he's totally antisocial towards all of them, except
right.
He's okay with Mithros, but only him when no one else is around because he's pissed off the other guys.
Yeah.
And
so right.
Storyline thread I had gone about like the ways in which this would manifest over the years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got to take a break. If you're watching us live, hang in there. We'll be back in a minute. If you're watching us on YouTube in the future, definitely like and share the videos if you like and want to share them. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe. Check out the links below so you can get information on the SilmFilm project, Signal University, Mythgard Academy /Institute, the Tolkien professor who's kind of running this whole shindig, as well as Mythmoot 5, taking place June 21st through the 24th this year. We'll be back in a second.